Good morning, everyone. What an honor to be here with you in this church. And I'll get to that in a minute. What an honor to be here with Isaac, Kate, and Aiden. Come on, Kate. Hold up, Aiden, one more time. You did it last week. It's kind of like Lion King. You remember up on the rock? We've had a family vacation and a family reunion. Isaac's brother and sister and the other three grandkids were here this past week, and we've just had the best time. And it's been fun to, of course, have a family reunion, but to come 2 weeks in a row. And I think this is our third time, maybe our fourth time to church here with each of you. So how fun. Hey, I promise we'll get to the title here in a minute. Okay, just hang on to that for a second. I just want to talk about the history of this church for a minute. I grew up kind of proud to be in a church that started in 1875. We're newcomers for, life compared to you guys. 1766, and then the other one is 1791. Oh my goodness, I wasn't even born. And then of course I've lived most of my life in California, and we say things like, "Oh man, that building was built in 1968. Let's put a plaque on it," And so to be here and to be a part of this, and to think of all the people that have come through these two churches, and then since 1965, that's right, I read your website, to know that these two churches have come together, and to think of all the people that the Lord has used this church to bring into his presence is very powerful. And so this morning I want to give a blessing to this church, even in this lesson. And I kind of had this lesson in mind already, and I called Chris and said, "Hey, what about Acts 17? And the more we talked, it was like, that actually kind of fits the adventure that we're getting ready to call the church to go on again. And so I hope it's a great blessing to each of you today. I bring greetings really from Kim and I. Kim and I have been in ministry. She started really young, 40 years. And you haven't been with me that time, but I've been in ministry 40 years. And so for us to be here, to be in another part of the country that we don't really know very, is a tremendous honor. Let me see if I can at least maybe kind of tell you a little bit about the messenger, because I think the messenger matters when you hear the message too. I grew up on a farm in Iowa, scooping hog manure and harvesting corn. It was the best life ever. I didn't know any different. And that was the church that my two great-grandmothers, we were laughing about it last night, Grandma Aggie and Grandma Maggie, were charter members of the church I was raised in. And I knew both of them. They lived to be in their late 90s. And stories of the people who started the Red Line Church of Christ in Iowa are always on the forefront of my mind, because it took a pioneering spirit to do what they did. They were populating western Iowa, as the migration moved west. And an old farmer who was also a preacher said, "I'm going to start a Bible study out of Grove." And they started a grove of the river, okay, right? And that's how this church started. And then they moved up to the schoolhouse, and then they built their own building in 1894, and then a tornado blew it away in 1913, right? We all got these stories. And I have that sense of pride of the church that I was raised in. And then I went to school, not in Iowa, but in Malibu, California, a little place called Pepperdine University. I'm not sure if you've seen it or not. Hey, are we ready for slides back there? Hit it. Here we go. I don't have the clicker. Hey, I meant to say this is family reunion. Well, my kids are a little older these days, but that's little Isaac in the front. Isn't that cute? That was in Chemnitz, Germany, right there. Oh my goodness. We were doing some mission work in Germany. That's why I keep wanting to say Hanover, but I know it's Hanover, right? I got to get, that's Americanized. Hanover. There we go. Man, you're going to be my buddy back there. I'm going to do this. You'll be watching me with every move. Here we go. Ready? Here we go, and here we are today. This wasn't this week, but it's a family picture of my sweet family. See Kate, Aiden, and Isaac right there in the middle. Isaac's sister Mike on the side, and big brother Luke on the side. We have 4 grandkids, 3 of them under the age of a day or 2. We have pictures of Isaac. And that's why you take these pictures, for that laugh right there. Someday. Here he is, first day of Baylor University, just, I love it. I remember coming down one day his senior year, things I never thought I'd hear in my house. Son, you want me to do your hair today? So, he won, were you vice president? Right? His theme was more fun with the bun. He had it up there. And we are so thankful for Kate, because look at his hair today. Isn't that awesome? Kate came into his life and brought great joy. She's a New Englander, you know that, right? She's from Maine. And joy that Kate has brought into our family has been incredible. And then through Aiden today, I just have that sensitivity that the Lord works in your life over the long haul. Hey, I told you I went to Pepperdine University. That doesn't look like Iowa, does it? That's Pepperdine. I was a great student. I was there from 1982 to 2005. And I got a lot of things that go with that. I got a master's, but I felt the tug of the Lord in my life, kind of out there. I mean, I'd been with the Lord all my life in church and those kind of things, but sometimes the Lord tugs at you. Too long I became the campus minister for the university and the university church right in the heart of campus. Not on the side campus, in the heart of campus. My office was right by the cafeteria. And I got to work with hundreds and thousands of students in a 21-year period of ministry. The Lord's work is hard, but someone has to be in Malibu. And here I am, fell in love and had 3 great kids and got to do all kinds of stuff at Pepperdine. And I just want to hold that slide for a minute. That's why I love coming to college towns. So even this morning, I mean, we're always in, I snuck into the Hanover Inn, and she was very gracious to give me a free cup of coffee. But I sat and looked at the green, and I watched students come and go. Your little town in this region is kind of built on Dartmouth at some level. And as I sat there, I thought of all those kids coming and going, and the importance of churches and Christians in this particular region can't be overstated, because it's there that they'll make decisions for the rest of their life. Well, we did other things too. We stayed a long time, didn't we, Kim? 21 years in ministry at Pepperdine. Just so you know the messenger part, in 2005, we kind of jumped off a cliff. I mean, you know how it is when you get to a university, you can kind of stay forever, right? Beautiful. But we just decided the Lord had called us to do something else. We started a church planting group. And so we've helped start churches around the country. Had a great time doing that. The last 6 years we've been in Texas. It might have been the middle finger, but I'm not sure what the reason was. We've been in Texas for 7 years, worked with a missions organization and president around the country and in various mission places to give them comfort and encouragement and maybe even courage. And then we also work with churches that are close to closing and trying to make decisions. We call that Heritage 21, having a heritage toward the 21st century. And the ministry that we lead, the 2 that's called the Conversation Group and working with ministers. So we live adventure too. It seems like you, as a church family, are entering a season of renewal and growth. maybe adventure and mission. I can't tell you how struck I was last week, and it was just flashing up here at the beginning. The mantra, the vision that you have to belong and then believe and become, that's powerful. As a visitor, it hit me. Belonging, believing, becoming, because all three are important. Because we live in an era where people just don't go to church. We live in an era where people are really wrestling with the larger questions of life. Religion is kind of a part of it. Most people don't start there like maybe some of our ancestors did. We live in a season where people actually kind of like Jesus. You know, you can't be against Jesus very much. He's so nice, you know. God, Christians, church, you know, go on and on, right? Right? We live in this era, and that sounds kind of depressing. You're about to start an adventure with Alpha. I just got to tell you, the church that we've been involved with in Los Angeles did Alpha. And I don't want to set up expectations and stuff, but it was fun. For any Star Wars fans, the very first one that came out, you remember the bar scene? You know, with all the different creatures in there and drinking and you know, the craziness and stuff. That's Alpha. Because it's supposed to be that way. People coming that don't know much, but someone invited, I got some questions. I told Chris the other day in our church, the Christian, okay, I'm sorry. Christians are actually kind of supposed to shut up a little bit and invite the people who are coming, right? Right? And not be quick with answers. So I think you're about to go on a journey. Do you need a biblical story to kind of latch yourself to? I've got one for you today. It's Acts chapter 17. But we're going to have an archaeology study first. Here we go. Anyone been to Athens? Isaac, you've been to Athens. I think you were all in a bad mood as kids when we were there. I remember reading the story of Acts and you were ready for lunch. But who has been to Athens? I'm sorry, I didn't. Yeah, a couple of hands. This is impressive, right? You know what this is, the Parthenon. And I actually like to put this image in your head from this vantage point. It's about 2,500 years old today. So around 500 BC is when the Parthenon came into being. An incredible place and an incredible structure. Man, people go through that thing all day long. 2,000 years ago, it was 500 years old. How old is this church? 250 years old? Beginners. Okay? This is where the Greek gods lived. You know, I should always memorize the Greek gods. I don't know who they are. Right? Zeus, Athena, Jupiter. Help me out. Who are the Greek gods here?
Just a slight correction.
That's okay, yeah.
It was Zeus's protege, but...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, see, okay, they're all out there, right? Every culture needs a way to explain things. Hey, big rainstorm came, the God of didn't like you last week, okay? You died early, it's because you didn't give enough sacrifice to Zeus. At 500 years old, when we're going to read about Paul, at 500 years old, this was the center of the civilized, intellectual, knowledge-based world. This was Boston, with all those universities, right? This is where it was at. And people were, and it wasn't run the last few hundred years. It had bright colored paint all over it, and lights at night. And sacrifices went on 24/7 inside. You could hear animals being slaughtered, you know, I mean, right? All that stuff. You came in, did your thing for the gods, hope you got a food. Athens was the center of the intellectual world. It was, you know, it was beautiful. And it stood on top of a hill, and here it is. I think that's actually the Parthenon in Athens, in Nashville. I get them confused all the time now. Nashville tried to recreate the Parthenon, and that's just kind of what it was going to be like. So, you see the beauty of the Parthenon. At 500 years, the center of the world. It's right. Now study that for just a little bit. Pretend you're standing at the base of the Parthenon, starting to look down on the city of Athens. I place you here because I think the words become even more meaningful when we read the story again. Here you go. Here, this picture is actually from the Parthenon looking down over town. Well, there's modern Athens in the background, right? See that rock right here? Kind of where people are kind of standing right up there. It's this little place called Mars Hill, or in the Bible, the Air. And now we're standing on the Areopagus looking up at the Parthenon. You see the back and forth kind of down the hill. What an interesting place. You can go there today. If you got good shoes, you can climb up there. The 3 times I've been there, I took my Bible and read Acts 17, the very story where it happened. But the more you think about it, I want you to get this place. This is called, I'll give you 2 interpretations because I think they're both interesting. When I read it, I kind of go, oh, this was like Paul being invited to a book club. That's not true. It was where the thinkers came, kind of like a university. In fact, I think one of the funniest lines in here is, that's all they did all day long was talk, listening to the newest ideas. Kind of like a university. I mean, I worked there for a long time, so I know. It's the place where new ideas were brought. There's a second interpretation. N.T. Wright, kind of a big-time scholar right now in New Testament studies in the world, we got to hear him a couple months ago, and he would say this. He said, no, Paul was kind of going to the little pre-trial because he was bringing ideas that were beginning to affect the economic and social structure. And there was for the military and for the Enlightenment knowledge industrial complex of his day. I don't know if he kind of was on a little trial or if he was going because the ideas were interesting. Think about it as we read. Oh, you know what? I just wanted to prove that we were there. That's actually our last trip to Athens. This is when I had hair. But that's at night. That's where it sits in the city. It towers over you. That's where the gods were, right? They were going to keep you under control. Go to the next slide. We're a good team. I like you. Put your brain, you're sitting right here at the Areopagus with us today. While Paul was waiting for them in Athens, his buddies, they were getting ready for they were on their adventure, right? He was greatly distressed to see that the city was full of idols. So he reasoned in the synagogue with both Jews and God-fearing Greeks, which is what Paul kind of did. You know, that's where he went first, as well as in the marketplace, day by day, with those who happened to be there. A group of tenured scholars, a group of Epicurean and Stoic philosophers, began to debate with him. Some of them asked, "What is this babbler trying to say?" Others remarked, "He seems to be advocating foreign gods." They said this because Paul was preaching the good news about Jesus and the resurrection. How many dead people have you known this week that have come back to life? Give the Epicureans and the Stoics a little credit, right? You don't see that every day. Then they took him and brought him to a meeting of the Areopagus. See why I think maybe it was like, hey, come to our book club. It wasn't, of course. Again, it was the council that sat over the city that had and debated and had debate, or he was taken there either under duress to say, "You are threatening our systems here, buddy. Let's get in the open." Where they said to him, "May we know what this new teaching is that you are presenting, you are bringing some strange ideas to our ears, and we'd like to know what they mean. All the Athenians and the foreigners who lived there spent their time doing nothing but talking about and listening to. Then Paul stood up in the meeting of the Areopagus. Let that sink in for a minute. A guy not from Athens, a guy from a dusty little, out of the way, stupid little country that the Romans are always having to go in and fight and take over. Here he is bringing some idea. And Paul says this, people of Athens are very religious, standing in the shadow of the Parthenon. They're going to Concord and saying, live free and die is a dumb idea. Well, going to the Supreme Court and going to the White House, and saying, let me tell you some other ideas. From one, and he's not served, sorry, go back 2 slides. I think I got ahead of myself. One more. People of Athens, I see that in every word very religious. For as I walked around and looked carefully at your objects of worship, I found even an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. So you're ignorant of the very thing you worship, and this is what I'm going to proclaim to you. The God who made the world and everything in it is the Lord of heaven and earth, and does not live in temples built by human hands. That was the dramatic pause I was trying to go. Standing right about there, saying that the God of the world is not a God that needs hands or lives in temples. And he's not served by human hands. In the background, you could hear all the human hands serving the Greek gods. As if he needed anything, rather he himself gives everyone life and breath and everything else. From one man he made all nations that they should inhabit the whole earth, and he marked out their appointed times in history and the boundaries of their lands. God did this so that we would seek him and perhaps reach out for him and find him, though he's not far from any one of us. For in him we live and move and have our being. As some of your own poets have said, we are his offspring. I thank you. Therefore, since we are God's offspring, we should not think that the divine being is like, back up the hill, gold and silver or stone, an image made by human design and skill. In the past, God overlooked such ignorance, but now he commands all people everywhere to repent. For he has set a day when he will judge the world with justice by the man he's appointed. He's given us proof of this to everyone by raising the dead. Saying that right there. What guts. What compassion, what courage. What sensitivity, what cultural enlightenment, right? What an ability to say, let me quote some of your poets. Therefore, since we are God's offspring, wait, one more. Here we go. When they heard about the resurrection of the dead, when they heard about the resurrection, some of them sneered. And others said, we want to hear you again on this subject. At that, Paul left the council. Some of the people became followers of Paul and believed. Among them was Dionysius, a member of the Areopagus. How about that? Also a woman named Damaris and a number of others. Yeah, there you go. I just want that to sit with you for a little bit. How about that? Is that not adventure? A couple oversight comments for us. Paul knew God and he knew culture. How about that? He knew his Jewish culture. That's where he went to kind of create the arguments that he made. He knew Greek culture. He knew humanity. He knew how. I'm not trying to say anybody here needs to go get a master's of divinity or anything. You know culture. You know culture. In there's a little tucked away line that God made the boundaries and the places where people will live so that some know him. You know New England. You know Hanover. You know Etna. You know Dartmouth. You know New England. Paul doesn't know New England, but you do. Greek scholars say that Paul had 6 minutes. They had a sand glass, you know. And someone went, you're on. Whether it was a trial or an idea to hear at a book club, he had 6 minutes, and he knew what to say. That captured the thoughts and the attention. Isn't that awesome? Paul took a chance. He could have said, hey, sorry about all the things I've been saying. I got to catch a plane or a train or a donkey. Whatever. If he was being hauled up there, I get it, but otherwise, I could do something else. But he took a chance. It was risky, and it was his security that was actually on the line. And guess what? He knew people were going to reject him. He was also relational because he kept conversations going after his 6 minutes. And today, by the way, when you go up to Mars Hill and when you go to the Parthenon, you go up Dionysius Road, not Zeus Road. Isn't that interesting? All started there in that little on the hill underneath the towering, imposing structure of the Parthenon. Maybe there's some encouragement in here for this great church. What drives us? I want people to know Jesus. Like I said, people kind of like Jesus. You know our culture well enough to know that you're going to kind of have to win them to church life, but once they meet Jesus, once you've allowed them to belong, and then believe, and then become, this church can do great things in this town. Be a risky church. Take a risk. Come on, Listen, we could have stayed at Pepperdine forever. We jumped out and took a risk, and I think the Lord has blessed us. Take some risks. Some of you work at Dartmouth. You know what it is, a risk for your careers at some level. To stand up and say, I believe in that Jewish guy that lived 2,000 years ago, but I think he came out of the grave. Okay, there's got to be more sensitivity than that at one level, but that is the core of our belief, isn't it? Man, when I think about culture today, people are hungry for meaning. They're hungry for purpose. They're hungry for relationships. People are lonely. And Jesus brings those answers through his church. Well, I hope Dionysius way to look at the ruins and the stones and a few idols here and there that are left over. That's all old news. We laugh at Zeus and Jupiter and Athena and all the other gods I can't remember. But Jesus still lives, doesn't he? May God bless this church in this season of mission and this season of adventure. I know prayer and reflection are next. Start us in prayer. And then have some silence, Chris, and you come take over. But I would love for you to pray personally a couple of things. What adventure, what mission has kind of hit on your soul? What person has come to mind to invite? And Chris didn't put me up to all this, by the way. I'm just so excited about this evangelistic adventure that you as a church are getting ready to do. In your private prayers, what dream do you want to pray of? God, double this church in the next 5 years. Why not? God, bring my best friend to Jesus. God, bring my kids back to faith. Go on an adventure in prayer. Go on an adventure at this church. And may the Lord give you the same joy brought Paul when he stood under the shadow of Anon and proclaimed Jesus. Let's pray. Your word, God, does not come back empty, as we read earlier today. We pray that good things will come to this lesson today. Not from my word, but the story of Paul. And Paul's passion to go out and know the culture well enough to invite them to explore Jesus. God, Paul was up against the culture of power and manipulation and idol stones and economic ship. God, we're kind of up against meaning and purpose and a reason for existence and loneliness. We know our culture. Will you help us to be great messengers for you today?